Welcome back to Sneaker Impact News. My name is Bryan the Botanist. I have a special guest today, Esteban Martinez. Welcome, Esteban. How are you doing?
Very good, Bryan. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to get to know you today and learn about Green Loop. So guys, Esteban is an architect and civil engineer who graduated from the University de los Andes and is the co-founder of Green Loop, with over 15 years of experience in sustainability and engineering applied to construction. He holds the distinction of Lead Fellow, making him one of the few professionals in Colombia with this certification. Additionally, he completed a master's in sustainable design at Boston Architectural College, an MDS Sustainable Design USA program, and has pursued complementary studies in sustainable urbanism and LEED certification at Rotterdam School of Architecture in the Netherlands. Esteban, it's so great to have you here today.
Thank you.
I heard you just got in from Colombia.
Yeah, actually, I flew in yesterday.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you live in Colombia?
Yeah, I live in Colombia, but nowadays we have a few projects happening throughout Latam. So yeah, I spend most of my time in Bogota, but nevertheless, I have to travel around.
Travel to a lot of Latin American countries in the U.S.
Yeah, we do.
Cool. So we're going to get into your background and identity right now. Why are you so passionate about sustainability, and how did you get into the green building industry?
Okay. It's a funny story, actually, to be honest, because it was probably back in 2008. I just finished my college degree in civil engineer, and it just so happened that the university choose our master's and graduation project as the one that they should send to this biennial architectural contest for universities worldwide. So they decided, okay, you know what? Your project, it's amazing. We think you're good enough to represent the university on this international biennale that it's going to happen about architecture. They decided to send my project. It happened in Shanghai, China, back in 2008. It was participants from all over the world. We were selected among the 30 best projects in the world.
Wow.
And because of that, they decided to give us 3-month intensive program about sustainable urbanism in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands, back in 2008. Yeah, and it was free of charge. We just needed to be there in present for the 3 months that this program was happening in 2008. So yeah, I decided to fly in there. We took the course. I learned a lot about sustainability back in 2008. If you recall, probably nobody was talking about that,
not back then,
to be honest with you. It was a shock for me. And to see that actually there in that part of Europe, they were so advanced. They were doing things that nowadays we would consider today. They were thinking about sustainable urban drainage systems. They were thinking about renewable energy. They were thinking about how to achieve to net zero. And I didn't know what net zero really was back in 2008. I learned a lot. After that, I returned to Colombia. And my best friend from the university, which is Diego, the other co-founder, his father bought this office in Bogota. And he said to Diego, you know what? You're not going to be an employee. You're going to have to be an entrepreneur. You're going to have to figure out. And I'm going to only help you out by putting you an office. I'm going to buy you 2 desks and 2 seats. You figure out what you're going to do with it. And it's your problem. I'm not going to give you 1 cent to keep the office running, not for any electricity, not for administration and services, and so on and so forth. It's up to you. You're going to have to figure that out.
You got you started in the space, but you wanted to make it so sustainably run.
We had to be economically sustainable. So I flew back from Colombia, from the Netherlands, and Diego approached to me in November 2008, and he said, hey, I have this problem. It's a nice problem to have. So I said, okay, let's go for it. So we started thinking about what we could do as an entrepreneurs. And the first thing we thought, we could do architecture because both of us are architectural and civil engineers. We do the 2 programs. So we said, I don't know if architecture is the right fit for it because we feel there's too much competition and it's too hard to be successful at it. So we said, I'm not sure if that's the good approach for it. So we said, what about engineering? And I said, and that's when it struck me. I said, listen, I just returned from the Netherlands and they're talking about the sustainable architecture and sustainable urbanism and sustainable buildings. And it involves both things. You have to know about architecture and engineering, and these 2 things
get married.
Yeah, they can work alongside. I said, why don't we give them a shot? He said, you know what? Why don't we do that? And obviously, back at that point, we didn't have anywhere where we could study about sustainable in Colombia, sustainable buildings whatsoever. So I flew to San Francisco, where I met one of my big mentors, Alex Spilger. He was also an entrepreneur. He used to work for this company called Green Step. And so I learned the ropes about sustainable buildings and this rating system, a US rating system that it's called LEED. After we learned that, so we brought this knowledge back to Colombia, and then we hit our first LEED project. We were
you got a client that wanted that.
We got a client that was asking for that, and that's how everything started. It was basically sort of a fluke, but at the same time, it was the right time to do it.
Direction too. For
nobody was talking about it, not even the universities, the academia. Nobody was talking about it.
So you were setting you were getting it started in Colombia.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Versus San Francisco or Germany, where they're so green-minded already.
They were green-minded at that point in time. Cool.
So tell us about your company, Green Loop. You're the co-founder.
Yeah, and the co-founder, actually, Diego and me were the two co-founders. Yeah, and we started back in 2009. We decided, okay, we're going to do sustainable buildings.
Okay.
And at that point in time, we had our first LEED project, and at the same time, there was this company that approached to us and they said, listen, I need to do some energy audits, which means basically that you're going to inspect the whole building, figure out how the energy consumption is, have a pie chart of what's the main driver in terms of energy consumption, and then figure out strategies to reduce the energy consumption.
Like heating and cooling.
For instance. Okay,
materials.
So inspect the boilers, inspect the HVAC system, inspect whatever. Inspect even the envelope or the building envelope. It's another big, huge thing that you have to inspect.
The building envelope, is that the
it would be
shell?
like the enclosure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the materials basically, the facade.
The facade.
Yeah, the facade, that would be. But technically it's the building envelope. Yeah, that's the way we call it in terms of building science. So at that point in time, we had to figure out which one was the biggest driver. And that's how we started working with energy consumption, energy efficiency, LEED certification, sustainable buildings, and so on and so forth. And everything is started scaling up. And
I understand you're one of the few LEED certified architects and engineers in Colombia.
We have, I don't know how many LEED certified professionals are in Colombia. It's
probably grown in the last couple of years.
Yeah, probably 200 or 300.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, me and my business associate were the only two LEED fellows that they're running a company, because there are two other more. So we are only 4 LEED fellows in Colombia, 4 or 5.
And like a fellow is where you become like a master in it or something?
Yeah, it means that the USGBC, the US Green Building Council, recognize you as a leader in terms of sustainable, and you're a champion. And after 10 years of making yourself valuable for the sustainable building industry, then someone else has to propose you as a LEED fellow, and then you go through a committee that awards you this certification.
That's very cool. What does LEED mean?
It means leadership in energy and environmental design. It's an acronym.
Leadership in energy
and environmental design.
Very cool. I know in Wisconsin, where I'm from, Frank Lloyd Wright and other famous architects, there was LEED buildings up there. I worked at a place called the International Crane Foundation, and they saved cranes from all over the world. And their building was a LEED designed and LEED certified, state-of-the-art energy efficient building, and it blended into the landscape, the prairies and the forests, and it wasn't like some gargantuan mansion. It was like everything about LEED means that it is meant to cooperate with the world instead of fighting against it. That's one easy way of thinking about it.
And probably
saving money too. You can save.
Yeah, you can save that. Definitely, you can save
a lot of money with it.
But the cool thing about it is that this is the biggest rating system that is available for buildings in the world.
Wow,
it's the most recognized label that you can get for a building to prove that they're.
Is there like a LEED Gold and LEED Silver?
Yeah, there are different levels. It's actually LEED certified, which is the basic level. Then you have silver, gold, and platinum.
Wow.
So it depends of your performance, how many points you scored, and then you get the rating system.
Okay, cool. So it's all a meritocracy where it's how you perform. Instead of how much money you have. That's really cool. So Green Loop, tell us a little bit more. I know you recently opened up in the US, but tell us about the company, like the services you offer and your role.
We started as a sustainable consultancy company, basically working with these rating systems. We do LEED, which is for these sustainable buildings. There are other rating systems that have a different focus. For instance, wall, it's just for healthy and productive spaces for people. They're only heavily towards people, so you have to excel in thermal performance, ventilation, illumination. They're looking for the perfect environment for human beings inside buildings. So that's well.
How do you spell that?
Wellwell.
Well,
like well.
Just like it sounds. Okay.
Yeah,
So
like
that's another classification system for people.
Yeah. There's another that
For
is
safety for,
for safety and for healthy environments. That's well. There's another one that it's called Fitwell, which is basically the same, but it has a little different approach, but it's the same thing. Fitwell. There are other ones like Florida Green Building Coalitions, FGBC, which is it's a local certification that it's for buildings, and it's like a first step in terms of sustainability. That it's good, and it's a good fit actually for residential, for instance. So it works really good. And yeah, basically those are the main drivers, and we have some others that are much more stringent, like the Living Building Challenge, which means that these are buildings that are zero energy, zero water, zero waste. They're championing everything, and
it's like water collection, even and solar, anything you can think of that's green.
Yeah, they're well ahead compared to the other rating systems in terms of performance and so on and so forth. So we started with that, and then we figure out, okay, we need like a department that can predict energy consumption and see how the actual thermal behavior of buildings. That's the energy modeling team. So basically I have a whole set of engineers with computers, these big computers that can predict. They build the models, and they can predict energy consumption, thermal, ventilation, and several different things that are happening within the building, and can tell you exactly what's wrong with your building and what you can do to upgrade the building. And at the same time, we created another department that it's called the commissioning department. Basically, what they do is inspect all the mechanical and electrical and plumbing systems, HVAC, boilers, domestic hot water, so on and so forth, photovoltaics and renewables. So they review the designs. Then when you get during the bidding process, they make sure that you're actually buying what you were supposed to do, because it may sound obvious, but it doesn't happen like that in the building industry, because at the end, the developer usually don't know what they're doing. It's that, for instance, you have a developer, then they say, I want an office building. I want to perform well, and that's it. They don't know about systems, about distribution systems, and so forth. The commissioning team is actually the technical eyes of the owner in the building. Are making sure that you're actually
work with the builder.
With the contractor and
to supervise, to make sure there's not only transparency but accountability. Questions are answered. There's probably a lot of questions along the way.
And you have to supervise the functional testings. So, startup. Is it working properly? No, it's not working properly, because you have this team of engineers. There are mechanical engineers, and they're specialized in this kind of thing. So they can tell you exactly what's wrong with this system, why it's not working properly, and what you have to do to actually make it work properly. So that's the commission team. And after that, so we have the project management team, the energy modeling team, and the commission team. And so with that, we built basically a sustainable consultancy company that it's focusing on buildings. But at the same time, we started a company that it's not a company, as a department that it's looking on the ESG and the corporate sustainability. So about
like commercial real estate more than residential, or
but not precisely that, but for any type of company. So if they want to disclose how they're doing in environmental, social, ESG metrics, we can do that as well. Greenhouse gas accounting and some other metrics, we can build them for them as well. So basically we have a whole portfolio of things surrounding sustainability, not only in buildings. Now we're doing urbanism, so we're doing master plans, working with cities to improve their sustainability. Basically, that's it. That's what we're doing.
Like tree cities.
Yeah,
they save a lot of energy.
They do.
Yeah, versus
Those are
cities that
incredible.
don't have trees. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
very interesting. A lot of people might not think about that every day, but it's the windows in your house, but it's also the shade. It's also the absorption of the heat and how you can save the energy, right? You don't want to lose that energy.
That's precisely what the energy modeling team is doing. And there's one thing that we have seen that usually we see that it's lacking in the buildings that we see out there, is that usually the people don't rely on passive strategies like solar shading devices and just picking the right color.
Sure.
That saves energy.
Yeah.
And sometimes people disregard that and they don't know why they're consuming more.
Sure.
A lot of energy.
You see that in deserts, you see it in the jungle. There's different types of colors and materials and just everything for different environments.
And the crazy thing
For the northern US where it's very cold to Miami where it's very hot.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about sustainability is not actually, we're not trying to create new things. Actually, we're looking at the past to see how the native habitats were doing it.
Okay.
And we're trying to replicate that with new technology, new materials, and not under the same circumstances that we're living now, but using that old technology.
Knowledge from other cultures.
Yeah, it's crazy. For instance, last week I was in my grandmother's town. She grew up there. It's in the northern part of Colombia. And I saw this house that was probably from the 1800s or something. And the technology, I'm calling technology but they knew how to work with this climate because it was so hot and humid. And so the house is built out of wood, just wood. They don't have any insulation. They don't have any HVAC systems. No. They didn't have anything, and it's perfectly comfortable.
Modulates the heat because it could be how they place it in the directional, like east facing, south facing is. You get more sunlight if it's south facing, obviously.
These big overhangs, they can draw air all day and all night. They have these small vents throughout, surrounding the whole building that allows the air to pass through, so you don't accumulate heat. It's so comfortable. Wow. I was blown away to see. Okay, these people in the 1800s, they knew how to deal with these extreme climates, and they don't rely on mechanical means whatsoever. So yeah, we have to learn a lot from the people that
really cool.
used to.
I like that.
Used to knew that.
Looking at history and culture to get ideas. So tell us a little bit about your clients, because I know you guys have won some awards.
Yeah, we have been in business for 15 years.
Wow.
So we started as a Colombian company, but probably 6 or 7 years ago, we started growing our business because for some reason the word spread out and they started saying, hey, these guys they're doing the things the right way. So we landed our first project in Ecuador, then Panama, then Costa Rica, then Dominican Republic. And afterwards, back in 2016, some US-based companies started looking at us and say, hey, we need you guys to support our projects because we don't have energy modeling team. So please do us the energy model. Or sometimes they were doing, hey, listen, we don't know how we could approach these designs and optimize them from the HVAC perspective or boilers perspective. Please give us that input so we can bounce back with our clients. So we started working with offices here in the US, actually in Hawaii and California.
Wow.
And that's why we started Greenloop back in 2016. It was basically a company that was intended to support other companies that were doing what we were doing in Colombia here in the US. And it was crazy for us to find out that actually that knowledge that we have been working and creating throughout these years was a good fit for the US market. Yeah. So that was crazy. And after that, we started landing these really nice clients. For instance, we started working with Google, Apple.
Corporations are seeing how important this is, not just environmental.
No. Big companies that are starting working. So we have 4 or 5 projects with Google, 2 projects with Apple, with Microsoft, 2 other projects, and so on and so forth. So these big companies started working with us and helping to support them because they wanted their offices, their headquarters in Colombia, they wanted to be a green building and sustainable and be LEED certified and so on and so forth. So the word started spreading, and we found out that a few of these clients have really good knowledge about sustainability, and they know what they're looking for. Oh, wow. They know what they want in their materials, about the healthy for their employees.
Bamboo or hemp or... recycled materials, obviously. Materials. Yeah.
Obviously. So there.
Do you use a lot of recycled materials?
Yeah, that's part of what we do. Actually, we support the architects to say, hey, listen, don't do this. You can do this with recycled materials or local materials.
Timber that's been salvaged.
Yeah, for instance.
I know they do that in Wisconsin. They take barns that are no longer being used and they use the barn wood for a new home that might be.
And that wood is perfectly good, so you can reuse it. And yeah,
but they have ideas, is what you're saying. They tell you what they want, and then you give them some advice.
Yeah, and sometimes they let us work alongside. So they say, "Hey, why don't we do a workshop around this?" And you can bring some ideas.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically,
involve students, basically, or involve. Is it involving students, or is it more the professional?
More on the professional level. However, we have done it.
Yeah.
We have done it with universities because they like to learn this. Hey, why don't you set up like this? I don't know, 4-week course with the students about this and bounce ideas and create teams and reflect and think about new materials and new opportunities. At the end, that's what we do. We actually help them to shake their heads a little bit, sort of speak, and see the picture in some other way.
Figure out the vision. Get their vision to match the vision of what Green Loop can offer with their vision, because they have a vision probably of what they want their building or their company to look like.
Yeah, and sometimes they are only looking for ideas, because sometimes they want sustainability, but they don't know where to start.
Okay.
And for instance, we don't sell anything. No. We just sell knowledge, and that's it.
Okay.
So when they say, hey, listen, I want a recycled flooring system. Okay, I know these 3-4 companies that do it.
Okay.
Why don't you get in touch with them? By the way, I know this and this company, and we have used them in these projects, and they're working perfectly. I can hook you up with these developers, and they can tell you how is it doing this.
You have a directory of trusted resources and partners that are proven to be.
After 15 years, you get to know the entire industry, so you know who's doing the right things, who you can support. And sometimes who you might not support, because sometimes they're not doing
shaky reputations.
Right. Yeah. So basically that's what we do. So we support that, and we provide knowledge, and that's it.
So your U.S. Do you have your main office for the U.S. in Aventura? I understand, in Miami.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Aventura is in like the northern part of Miami, right on the border of Broward County, north of downtown Miami by about 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
25 minutes. Yeah.
So you're in Aventura.
Yeah, we're in Aventura right now, and we're basically starting to growing this because obviously we started as a company that was supporting other companies outside the state of Florida, but we have seen a huge increase in companies looking Florida as their home office. Since the pandemic, some offices have moved to Florida because of the nicest weather and so on and so forth. And we know economically wise, Florida, it's in it's like there are 50 minutes of fame. We know because probably 10 years ago, probably you could do a little bit about sustainability on the residential market in Florida, and that was it.
How much?
A little
tiny
bit.
Little bit.
Yeah,
Sliver,
tiny little bit.
Less than 1%.
Yeah, only on the residential market,
only
and that was it. Nowadays, we know they're doing commercial, educational, healthcare, because things are happening in Florida. Yeah, we started the business here just for, it was basically, again, another fluke.
Yeah.
But we started thinking, you know what, the Florida market is looking really good.
Yeah.
Why don't we start looking for it? And that's why we decided to, okay, let's open our office and let's start bringing and delivering this knowledge it's in need in Florida. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, it's friendly to businesses like Green Loop. And also there's a big community of Colombians and other Hispanic people in South Florida. Is that part of the reason? Or was it more just the favorable business environment?
It's more about the favorable environmental, but nevertheless, we do have, and you can see in Florida, there's
also closer to fly from Colombia to Miami than to Portland or somewhere, or New York City.
It's cheaper. It's the cheapest one to get to the US.
Yeah.
It's a 3-hour flight. So it's basically, I was flying at 7 a.m. and I was here at noon. So you can figure out, and it works really good. And the other thing, you cannot disregard the Latin American background that South Florida, especially South Florida, has, because when you get to meetings and so on and so forth, yeah, it's so easy to connect because this cultural bind that connects us. So it helps. It definitely helps. It was not the main driver, but nevertheless,
It's the capital of the U.S. for Latin America, I believe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of industry based here that operates throughout. So tell us about what drew you to Sneaker Impact. I know we met Barbara, one of your colleagues, at a Chamber of Commerce event, and you got to get a tour today from our founder, Mo, and you got to see our new floors that are made out of recycled shoes and how we create a second life and economic opportunities with the shoes rather than going in the landfill or just grinding them. We're actually helping to prevent them from needing to get made a new shoe because like we were talking about with timber, but like, what have you learned about Sneaker Impact that caught your interest today?
To be honest, it's the same thing. It's so impressive how close we are in terms of sneakers and buildings. Because at the end, we only do a small amount of new construction per year worldwide. There's only a small portion of new construction that is happening worldwide. Most of the building stock is already done. 95% of the buildings are already done.
Oh, okay.
And they're going to be there for the next 15, 16, 70 years. And we have to figure out how we can upcycle and recycle those buildings because we cannot deconstruct, create waste, and then build a new building. It doesn't make any sense. Not even
tremendous amount of energy would be spent doing that.
It's crazy. And people are doing that.
Sure. Oh yeah, rich people. Oh, destroy that house and just build my mega mansion.
I don't mind. Yeah. And it doesn't make any sense.
And they're paying a lot of money to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end, we're so close because we have so much work to do. As you guys are doing with the sneakers, we have to do it with buildings.
There's a big problem to solve.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you have to figure out how we can reduce waste that it's produced when you're actually deconstructing these buildings. And sometimes you have to start thinking about how you can deconstruct buildings because you can demolish, so you can bring this big machinery and you can torn everything apart, and then you have the small pieces. Sometimes are usable, sometimes they're not. But what about if we start thinking about buildings in a way that we can deconstruct? You can deconstruct things and take things that are usable and use it somewhere else, as we were talking about with the wood, for instance. That was something that you could use, you could do in the past. Nowadays, the buildings are so complicated, again, in the facade, in the building envelope, and these materials that we're doing are so technically wise that it's so hard to deconstruct that we don't know what we're going to do with it. So we have to figure out, we have to think the same way that you guys are thinking about sneakers, we have to think about buildings.
There's different parts of the shoe. There's different modern sneakers are a lot more complicated than leather ones from 80 years ago.
It's the same thing. Yeah. It's exactly the same thing. So you have to figure out. So that's so cool that we're so close.
Yeah.
In terms of synergies,
partnership opportunities too. Some of these sneakers can go into buildings.
Definitely. I just saw your flooring systems and definitely can go within a building. And so at the end, it's all about looking for opportunities to close the loop and recycle and upcycle and bring back to life these old buildings that probably you don't see the value in it, but nevertheless they do. So at the end, we think we have a common way to see things that the main driver for us at the same time.
It's really cool. You mentioned Google, Apple. Who are some of the other brands and organizations you've partnered with over the years, and what have you learned from these collaborations?
Okay, probably from these big companies. We have worked also with hotel brands, Hilton, Four Seasons,
Sure.
I don't remember the other ones, but nevertheless, these big companies usually have a good knowledge of sustainability. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, they only have
hear
like
about
two
in the
people.
news maybe. You can get wind energy, or you can get solar energy from FPL, Florida Power.
Yeah.
Or you can compost. Or there's Green Star. In the US, we're big into Green Star appliances, and the better windows are gonna keep the heat from the AC in the US in Miami from going on. But what have you learned mainly from these collaborations with these bigger companies?
Yeah, what I was about to tell you is that these big companies usually have these manuals about sustainability.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have figured out that some of these companies are actually asking you to do the right things, which is it's really good to see. Sometimes they say, hey, listen, I want this and this.
Can you give us an example of something a client?
For instance, Google has this own platform, internal platform about materials. It's only about materials. And they have done a tremendous work, years and years of building this database of materials that you can only use on Google facilities.
Okay.
So they have figured out if they have harmful materials, they're not allowed to use it within the.
Is that from studying the buildings they made and the materials they use, or is it from like research that's been done around the world?
From the research.
From the research. So
and talking with manufacturers and saying, hey, what's in it? And they disclose what's in it, and they say, hey, listen, you can be within a Google facility. So they have done a tremendous work only for them, because it's not an open public database, but nevertheless, they are working, they're pushing their manufacturers and their suppliers.
That's good to hear. They're one of the biggest companies in the world. The Magnificent Seven. And you named a couple: Apple, Google. Yeah. There's Meta. There's a couple others.
Microsoft as well.
Microsoft, Tesla. So, Tesla's leading the way too in energy efficiency.
So these guys are doing their homework, which is really good. And sometimes you get some knowledge that you can spread it to some other companies that they don't know what they're doing. In terms of, it's not that they don't care, it's just they don't know where to start with. They don't have the
level of Google.
And they don't have the resources because there's a lot of economical resources going to research and development. So at the end, you get this knowledge and you can spread it to other companies that don't have the same capacity to level up and be, hey, listen, this is what Google is doing. What about you guys? Are you guys doing something similar to it? And sometimes they say, hey, I might be interested. Why don't we do that? And it's not only on the material side, it's also on the mechanical side, about lightings, about HVAC systems, about heating, about noise suppression, about thermal comfort, ventilation, safety, these kind of things. They're worried, truly worried about it. So you get to learn what they're worried about, and you can help them spread to other clients about what they're doing, and to see if they want to approach.
Have you noticed a big acceleration in the knowledge base in the last 10 years, especially with AI in the last couple of years? Have you noticed? Because I think the green revolution has really taken off in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But I've been an environmentalist. I got a degree in environmental sciences from the University of Wisconsin in like 2002. And back then I was like an outlier. There weren't a lot of people I was a little bit of an outsider. Most people weren't thinking about that in the late 90s. But now it's just on the forefront of everyone's mind. Yeah. And it's possibly because the earth needs this, and also people are getting smarter. Yeah. And everyone wants to save money. But have you noticed a big acceleration? How has AI helped?
Definitely it has accelerated. Yeah. And I think it's the fact that people, one way or the other, have seen the impact of climate change, one way or the other, especially in Florida. The floodings, we have bigger hurricanes over and over and over, and you know that we're in danger because of climate change. And one way or the other, people have been touched with this climate change that it's happening. And we can no longer disregard that. We can no longer say, hey, it's not happening. It's definitely happening, and we have to do something about it. So I think that's part of the reason why people are starting to push forward the sustainability, and obviously the new generations come with a different chip.
So they're getting smarter.
Yeah, definitely they're getting smarter. And for instance, my little girl, she's 4 years old. And 2 weeks ago, she approached to me and she said, Daddy, did you know that the earth is sick? And I said, what do you mean? Yeah, and my teacher told me that the earth is sick because we're doing things wrong as a humanity, and we have to do something about it. And she's only 4 years old. Wow. So then again, you think, okay, what she's going to be thinking about in just 10, 15 years when she gets to college. Definitely, they have an advantage. They know what they're talking about, and obviously they're pushing.
They also look for brands and to support and buy things that are environmental. I think that was a stat, 70% care about the purchases they make, that sustainability is at the forefront of the whole thing, that they don't just want fast fashion anymore. Right. They want to support fair labor, fair treatment of everyone, from animals to people, and I think that's really cool.
And actually, I saw a study. It's probably the same study. It was 78% of the people that are buying consumer goods and so on and so forth, they prefer whoever is doing something about sustainability. So it's just on the mouth of everyone.
Yeah, I think another stat, like over 90% of Americans want to recycle, like 92 to 94%. Like everyone wants to recycle, but you have to make it easy and you have to make it just make sense to them. Like, how do they do it easily? Because they're busy.
It makes sense. Yeah. So that's why I think it has accelerated. Definitely, it has accelerated.
And the media has probably also helped a little bit with
it has helped.
Just education. Everyone thinks of the media as bad, but actually the media is good too. It's important. They're watching, they're watching what's going on too.
Yeah. I wish they talk a little bit more about this, to be honest with you. For instance, when these huge COP are happening in 2016, and so it was in Glasgow, it was a huge COP. They were talking about climate change and how we were going to face the next 5 years.
The Paris Accord?
The Paris Accord that happened in 2015. That was the COP21. Okay. The 26 happened in Glasgow.
To get all the countries to come together and fix what we've done to the earth.
Yeah, they have to get together every 5 years with these big COPs to talk about what they have been doing and what can we do to stop the climate change. So in 2021, actually, the COP26 happened. So, and sadly, as my opinion, we should have heard more about what was happening there, because it was a huge meeting.
We didn't hear a lot. I did hear the U.S. backed out, which is sad.
Yeah.
Because, and it doesn't matter who the president is. I think it's just sometimes corporate interest that they don't, it's like we produce so much emissions in the U.S. and we consume so much. Like one thing, and I've been advised not to make it seem like we're worse or better than anyone else, not by my boss, but more just about just people who are like, Bryan, don't make it like that we're perfect. But the U.S. is less than 5% of the world. So we're like 4.5% of the world's population, but we consume about 25% of global resources. And the amount of greenhouse gases we create is probably like 50% or 30. Other countries too have some issues with, like whether it's China or whether it's Guatemala or whether it's Colombia or Russia. It's a very complex world we live in with geopolitical. So I think it's, and ESG has become like a trigger word almost a little bit, unfortunately, and it shouldn't be. Because sustainability, it's not a political issue. It should be a humanitarian issue. We're going to have some serious problems in even 50 years if we start.
And I think it's going to happen in a shorter time frame.
What have been some of the biggest challenges you think you've had to overcome and with Green Loop, like as a business and just in general, like what is like maybe the biggest or?
Probably the biggest challenge, which is probably our biggest strength at the same time, was the fact that when we started back in 2009, we started talking about LEED rating system and US rating system in Latin America. And to give you some more perspective, back in Colombia, for instance, where we started, we don't have any type of energy codes whatsoever. There are no energy codes. So you have to figure out, okay, I have this energy code that it's required to comply with LEED. But at the same time, I have these buildings that have no energy code whatsoever. They have no requirements in terms of energy performance. So how we can make this building, this Colombian building, comply with this energy code that they're imposed by the rating system, for a country that doesn't have the same realities, the same climates, and the same conditions. We had to figure out how we can understand what the building is actually, what is happening with the envelope, with the systems, what are they stressed about, and tackle those systems to make it as efficient as possible to comply with this energy code.
Okay.
So we had to basically learn the ropes of how we can actually diagnose a building and pinpoint exactly what it needs to be done to actually be energy efficient. And that's the kind of knowledge that has brought up, it has elevated us as knowledgeable people, because sometimes here in the US, and I don't mean to say that you don't have people, because I know you have tremendous people that know what they're doing. But at the same time, you have the energy code. So sometimes the architects only work by code, and they're doing what the code is it's asking for, and they don't ask questions. They don't think.
They're not critical thinkers.
They're not critical thinkers. I'm not saying it's wrong. Yeah. It's just
if they're following the law.
Yeah, they're following the law. That's exactly
the
what
regulations and that's different in every country. And there's a learning curve to operating in different countries.
And I totally get it, because at the end they have to comply with the law. So this is the code. I'm gonna comply with it. That's it. But then again, in Colombia, since you don't have those codes, you're free to operate and figure out and that kind of things that was probably the biggest challenge at first. It became our biggest strength because nowadays we know how we can diagnose a building and pinpoint exactly what needs to be done to push a little bit forward on energy, on water, on whatever it needs to be done.
Wow. So mastering the diagnostic angle
Right.
was the initial challenge.
And be proficient in what we call building science. Because at the end, understanding how a building behaves, it's a science.
Yes.
It's about energy flows, it's about dynamics, hydraulics, air moving. So you have to know about thermodynamics and these kind of things that are really hard to learn and understand how everything fits
like
out within a building.
Interdisciplinary sciences.
Yeah, it is.
Combining a lot of different
So
landscape architecture, urbanism. That's so cool.
yeah.
and the recycling industries.
Right.
What is your personal mentality as a community leader and as someone who serves
and
yourself and others?
It has changed throughout the years, but probably where I'm standing right now is that I think we have a commitment and we have to serve the people. We have to do one way or the other. We have to figure out how people can be more conscious about what's happening and how they can help out. And I see it, for instance, with the people, with my team, the team that I have at Greenloop. By the way, we're 43 engineers in our office. So we have a good, strong team in
you're operating in multiple countries.
Yeah.
Like you said, Costa Rica and all these cool places that are.
So I have my team and I see myself, or I see Greenloop and myself as a leader, as a platform to improve and upgrade the people knowledge and the people sensitivity towards sustainability. And if I can make them better people with better choices, and at the end they're doing the right thing, and if they're doing the right thing, we're doing the right thing, and we all are doing the right thing. So at the end, I see myself as someone who likes people to see them grow on the sustainable
personal
matters.
growth.
Personal and professional. And if they grow, I consider myself that I'm growing at the same time. So it has changed over the years, but that's where I'm standing
awesome.
right now.
That's what a leader should be doing, is helping to help their community grow. What are your future goals for Greenloop, Esteban?
I don't have a specific goal.
Okay.
I don't think Diego has one either.
It's a boilerplate question,
but nevertheless, if you ask
see yourselves in 5 to 10 years.
If you ask me, I want to have my mind at peace. What I mean is that I want to feel that I did my part. Okay. I did whatever it was within my reach, within my knowledge, to spread the word and put this little
signature / impact.
Yeah, a small impact in those buildings that I have touched. Throughout these 15 years, we have touched over 700 buildings.
Wow.
It's over 70 million square feet that we have we have consulted, and we have done something about sustainability. I know for a fact that I might be impacting 0.1% of the entire greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. But nevertheless, at least I feel I'm doing something.
Yeah, you're one person, one company, but it's also an example for the industry, and it's growing. There's probably in Colombia, it's growing more in the last 10 years, but in the U.S. it's growing fast. In Europe, it's already probably big deal there for many years.
It is.
The construction of homes. Before we close out, I want to learn a little bit more about you as well as a man. So you have a couple of children?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
One small.
And you were born in Bogota?
I was born in Bogota.
Okay. I went there in the last year. We talked about that before, so I love Bogota. And what do you notice? What do you like about Miami? And is there anything you really like to do here? What are your favorite things to do when you visit?
It's been a long time since the last time I was here on vacation.
Okay.
It's been mostly about work. But nevertheless, I truly enjoy South Florida especially. I like the people. I like the places. I like it, the way it feels. It feels so... Again, I think it's because of this cultural background that we're tied together. Because at the end, even though a big city, it's hugely developed and so on and so forth.
Bogota has 21 million.
Yeah, it is.
We're like 3.
Yeah, but at the end, it feels almost the same.
Okay.
In one way or the other. I know. I see.
It's a big metropolitan area.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So at the end, it feels like home. So I truly enjoy it, and I enjoy the weather. obviously. Nevertheless, and you have been in Bogota, so you know we have a temperature that is a little cooler.
9,000 feet.
Yeah,
versus
9,000
zero.
feet.
We're at zero here.
Yeah. But at the end,
0 to 7, right? I think it's
yeah,
7 feet of elevation change in South Florida or something. I don't know. There's
It's
more than that on a
bad.
bridge or a hill, but like man-made hill. But like the Everglades was naturally like a 7 foot or something.
It's
It all
almost
drained.
nothing.
But yeah, Bogota's a little different. I love the food. I love the people of Colombia, and I'm going back in January, so I'm looking forward to hanging out and checking out Green Loop down in Bogota.
Definitely. Please make sure to reach out to me, and I'll give you a quick tour.
How do people connect with you and learn more?
They can reach out to us through our webpage,
Okay.
www.green-loop.com. And through me, LinkedIn probably is the best way.
Are you guys on social media?
Yeah, LinkedIn for me. In Martinez, you can look for me, Esteban Martinez.
Esteban Martinez.
Green
I'm going to
Loop.
look you up because I don't think we're friends yet.
Yeah.
Social media friends. We're friends because
Yeah. And
do you
Instagram-
showcase what you're doing on like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter?
Actually,
X, I guess they call it.
no, we used to be. It's not that we're shy.
No.
It's that we
You're
felt
focused,
that
yeah.
no, we felt that we were like bragging about it.
Oh, okay.
So we were
To be humble.
Yeah, we were that, but nevertheless, we figured out. Actually, I met this. I think he's the vice president of Sloan, this big manufacturer.
I've heard of Sloan, yep.
Yeah, and he told me one thing that is stuck in my mind. And he said, if you have it, you brag about it, right? And I said,
proud.
he's right. It's not that we're doing something wrong. Actually, we're doing something quite good. And you can
And you're
brag the right
educating.
way.
You can educate through social media.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
You can brag the right way and at the same time educate. We're starting with that, and definitely reach out through. I know we're gonna have an Instagram in a US Green Loop Instagram.
I follow your Instagram. Yeah.
Account.
Yeah.
There, we're gonna focus solely on educational and these kind
Cool.
of things, so people know more about the technical side behind sustainable building.
Yeah,
and
like I see a lot of
sustainable
YouTube shorts where they show you science and they show you things about the ocean or about construction or stuff you can do in your home, like gardening and just things to improve your life. So I think it could be a really cool thing for a short on YouTube of this is the dissection of a home. Oh, this is how we tell if it's efficient or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it can be used for good purposes.
Definitely, we're gonna start seeing some type of.
This has been a really interesting conversation because we don't get to talk to an architect and engineer very often here. I talk to a lot of sneakerheads, which I love my sneakerheads. I love my runners. We talk to a lot of runners. We're a running company, and we have artists. We're really into recycling. It sounds like there's some collaboration opportunities between the two companies. So I'm really excited about what the future holds, and we'll definitely have you and your colleagues on again. And in the meantime, what inspiring message would you like to share with our audience before you leave?
I think probably one of the biggest message that we could leave here is that it doesn't matter if you think you're not, or if you see, for instance, that your country is not doing enough. If each one of us start doing the right thing, perhaps we can change something. We don't need the countries or the governments to start asking us. We should start doing that by ourselves. And that's the only way we're going to achieve true changes and achieve and revert this climate change and this crisis.
Actions can make a big difference too.
Right.
That's what we say at Sneaker Impact is millions of small actions make a huge impact.
I think that's it.
Americans sending us their shoes 5 at a time. When we talked about earlier that there's 3 billion shoes brought into the US every year to sell, but 87% of them don't get recycled. There's something like it's a snowball effect too. And I think what you're saying too is that you don't have to be perfect right away. Just get started and you're going to learn along the way. Right. You guys have learned a ton, I'm sure. And since you started in 2009 in your masters and your certifications, and now look at 15 years later, it's pretty awesome, I think, to think about how far you've probably come as a company, and yet there's so much further to go. But if you would have worried in the first day about being perfect, you wouldn't have gotten started. No. It's never about being perfect. It's about growing, right?
And there's one thing that actually some of the people within our team says to me, and Diego, my business associate, is that definitely we are not afraid about looking new alternatives or new opportunities. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if we don't actually have figured everything out. Just do it.
Test it out, experiment.
during the, you have enough time to actually start learning the ropes, and you won't be perfect the first time, but definitely the second or the third time you'll be better and better and better. And that's the only way to start doing some changes.
Very cool. I love it. I love your attitude. I love the services you offer. I'm excited to share Green Loop with the world. And we're going to be, this episode will be out soon on YouTube. Thank you so much, Esteban, for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
All right.
Likewise.
Keep up the great work at Green Loop.
Okay.
We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.